Parishioners, I got all the money to build a large parish hall out there. I got all the money, and they all cheered, and I said, that's the good news. The bad news, the money's still in your pocket. And when I get the money from in your pocket, this pocket, I'll build a large center that we can hold these things in. But we've held many community events here. In February, we had a big opioid drug crisis seminar here. We've hosted a lot of times the high school choral groups because they don't have a performing hall, so they come here. So we try to use this as a meeting center. We believe we're a catalyst for the community. So that's why we held it. We reserved the Blessed Sacrament so that we can have a space. But I truly want to welcome all of you here. It's a joy to have you and to host you for this night. I'm very blessed to be the pastor of this parish. I told people I'm the luckiest man alive next to Lou Gehrig to be a pastor here. And I'm blessed to be here in Simi Valley and the environs, and we really truly want to welcome you. I want to give a special thanks to Griffin Homes because they were the ones that sponsored this night for us. Okay, let's say that. Special thanks to Paul and David Griffin, who really sponsored this night. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just want to say a blessing upon us. Loving Father, we ask your blessing upon our gathering tonight, and especially our speaker, who speaks with such a clear and powerful voice about rational approaches to life, and especially about the godly virtues that should govern our lives. So we thank you for him and for him taking the time to be with us. We ask you to bless him, and that we might be able to hear a really powerful message about an important topic, about socialism. So we ask this in your holy name. Amen. Amen. And now I'd like to introduce to you the guest of honor and our speaker tonight, Mr. Dennis Prager.
Wow, that was quite a reception. I'm very touched for many reasons, as I will explain, but I first need to say you are very lucky to have Father Shea. Some people, you know how special they are within 1 minute. That's how I felt when I met my wife. And so he's in a very special category, Father Shea, in my brain. But it's clear that he is, and thank God for clergy like him, because that's not always the case. And I'm just talking philosophically. I'm not referring to anything else. Just in my religion, Judaism, and in Catholicism, and in Protestant Christianity, there's a lot of trouble, a lot of problems, where people don't seem to take the Bible seriously anymore. They take the New York Times seriously. And I mean that literally. They get their values from the New York Times editorial page rather than from the Bible. So it's a real problem. I heard one man said he goes, whenever he lectures before a religious group, he says, I don't care what religion you're a member of, as long as you're ashamed of it. It's a bitter comment, but there is unfortunately a fair amount of truth to it. I just got to tell you that for many reasons this is particularly moving to me, because I moved to California from New York in my mid-20s in the 1970s, and I moved to Simi Valley. Yes, this was my first home away from New York from 1976 to 1979. Because I was brought out to head the Jewish Institute that is out here, then by the founder, Shlomo Bardin himself brought me to be his successor. I was 50 years younger than he was. He announced that I would succeed him at a meeting of the membership one Saturday, Sabbath afternoon, and he died that week. No one even knew he was sick. He just announced that this 25-year-old would succeed him, and then he passed away. So this fell on my shoulders. My 3 years here were terrific, and for those of you who moved here since then, it was very different. If I had any financial ability, I would have bought anything. Anything. Grass. I would have made a fortune. It was so empty, Simi Valley, when I was here. There were 2 restaurants, literally 2. I most of the time, because I never made any food for myself, I would go over and eat in the valley. And but if I ate here, there was Chi-Chi's Pizza, which I remember to this day as particularly delicious. And I wonder how many of you remember the Simi Deli. Oh, wow. There you go. It's still there? Do they still serve cheese Danish? Because that's what I had, as you could probably tell, on a regular basis. So anyway, and one other very warm memory, and I met a fellow Rotarian here from that time, Sal, and it was a joy to meet him tonight. I joined the Rotary Club. And I wrote a piece, you could see it on the internet, about how that was life-shaping in my appreciation of America, the 3 years that I was in the Rotary Club of Simi Valley. I think I was the only Jew in the club at the time. And what I wrote about in my article was, and I know Jewish history very well. I've written books on it. I taught it at Brooklyn College in New York City, taught Jewish history. It amazed me, and it was so quintessentially American, it didn't matter. And that's what I wrote my piece about. That I was the one, and maybe there was another, but that I was the one Jew in the Simi Valley Rotary Club in 1976. The whole point is, it didn't matter. No one gave a damn. Now, I knew how big a deal that was, because if I were the one Jew in a French Rotary Club or an Argentinian Rotary Club or wherever it would be, they wouldn't have been anti-Semitic. And I wrote that. That's not my charge. But it would have been clear. It would have been Dennis the Jew. Whereas here, it wasn't. It was just Dennis. And that's America. Until the left changed it to the Jew, the black, the Hispanic, the gay, the whatever, fill in the line. This is new. American, now it's not new in the sense, of course we had racism in the past, but as an ideal, the American people didn't care. You were Italian, you were Polish, you were from Asia, you were from Japan, you were from China. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. That's the beauty of America. It doesn't matter. Today I reported on my radio show 75 colleges that they just happened to have investigated. There were way more. Have all black dormitories and all black graduations exercises. Isn't that racism? I don't understand. I grew up a liberal. Of course I did. I'm a New York Jew. What else am I going to grow up? As I tell people, on my birth certificate, it did have, in fact, sex, male, party, Democrat. It was, and for many, party is unchangeable. Sex is changeable, but not party. So it was, to a liberal, integration was the ideal. Segregation was associated with Southern racism. And now Harvard has black graduation and black dorms, and Stanford, and everything in between. This is not America. This is not America. America is being unraveled. The greatest experiment, or as Lincoln correctly put it, the last best hope on earth, is being compromised. And there is a battle for the soul here. By the way, I see Congressman Elton Gallegly, and I just want to say what an honor it is, sir, to see you here. Thank you. By the way, the congressman introduced me about 8 months ago at a synagogue in the Valley. This was pandemonium. 1,200 Jewish conservatives. You don't understand. It was orgiastic. People. I have given thousands and thousands of talks. I don't recall one where people were almost literally bouncing off the walls as they were. They spent most of their time getting up from their seat. They were just going up and down. First of all, they didn't know there were 1,199 others. So this was in and of itself a high for Jewish conservatives in Los Angeles. But they exist, and it was. By the way, you should watch it. It's on YouTube until they're restricted. It is on YouTube. Just Google my name and Valley Beth Shalom or Dennis Prager or Jewish Republicans, whatever it is. You will get a big kick out of it because I really let the Jewish left have it, and the 1,200 Jews there were just crazy about it. There were hundreds turned away. I mean, that's how big. I mean, we do exist. I don't just mean Jewish conservatives. Conservatives do exist. Even in California, even in Southern California. And the truth is, we would be dominant if we were allowed to be heard. That's why they don't want us to be heard. Deep down, they know that they don't have an intellectual basis for their beliefs. It's all emotional. They don't acknowledge it, obviously, but deep down, I'm sure they know it because we don't fear hearing them. They fear hearing us. Right? There's no comparison. There was an actress on Stephen Colbert, and I played her, Juliana Margulies, is that correct? My knowledge of actors and actresses is challenged. And anyway, so she was on and she said, yeah, I get all my news from the New York Times and NPR. And I thought, that's fine. I listen to NPR and I read the New York Times. I have a subscription to the New York Times at the station. I read it every day. But she never read National Review. And she never watched the PragerU video. And she never saw anything, or she never read the Wall Street Journal editorial page. Right? That's the difference. We hear them, we study under them, we read them, we watch them, but they don't hear us, they don't read us, they don't study under us, and they don't watch us. And for good reason. If they did, they would enter a state of cognitive dissonance. They have no arguments. That is why I have often noted that whenever there is a left-right debate, the conservative wins. Not because we debate better, but because we know all of their arguments and they know none of ours. By the way, I debated a Jewish leftist at a synagogue in San Francisco about, a year and a half ago. So that was on YouTube. They put that on the restricted list. That's where they put pornography. In other words, if you have a filter against pornography and violence in your house, you can't see what's on the restricted list. Now, why would a synagogue debate between two Jews be on the restricted list? There's only one answer, because the leftists lost. And they don't want you to see that. That's how bad it is. It's worse. It's much worse than that. But tonight's topic is socialism, and I do want to talk to you about that. As you may know, and it is a fact, believe it or not, about half of Americans have a positive view of socialism, and at least that number of millennials. In fact, half the millennials do not believe in free speech for hate speech, which it shows you how unclear their minds are, because when does free speech matter? Love speech? I mean, do you understand how preposterous it is? Oh, I believe in free speech, but not for hate speech? Then you don't believe in free speech. There's no such thing as If I determine what is hate speech, then there's no free speech. Of course, the whole point is you allow it for speech you happen to not like, whether you deem it hate or not. That was the one thing truly liberals and conservatives always agreed on, free speech. That's what made America different. You could say what you want, not anymore. This is a very scary development, and one that coincides with the development of the attitude towards socialism. So I would like to make the case to you tonight on moral grounds, because I think morally. I don't think politically, I think morally. That's the way my brain works. I think in terms of right and wrong and good and evil. That's how I think. That's why my favorite biblical verse is, those of you who love God must hate evil. It's not quoted much, but that's what it says. It's a very powerful verse. You can't, if you don't hate evil, you cannot love God. That is a biblical statement. I didn't make that up. So here are some reasons why socialism is immoral, not just economically, which I'll get to, not just politically unfeasible, but immoral. The American dream, the American ideal, which was unique in history, was this: I take care of me, I take care of my family, I take care of my community. That was the American ideal. The socialist ideal is the state takes care of me, the state takes care of my family, the state takes care of my community. Now you tell me which is more moral. Just on moral grounds, which will make a better society? Where you believe you are responsible for you, your family, and your community, or you think the government is responsible for you, your family, and your community? It's not comparable. I mean, this very notion, I gave this a variation on this talk, but on this theme at the University of Wyoming, and there were about 800 students there, and it was clear to me this was new to them. Thank God they were there. But once they heard this, it's impossible to refute. There is no left wing, there is no socialist response to what I just said. Which is better? Which will make more goodness on earth? That I feel morally responsible for myself, my family, and my community, or that I let the state do it? That is why Americans give so much more charity than Europeans. And I'm talking same exact economic status. Because Europeans don't give charity because they are raised with, the government will take care of these people. We don't have that. We are the most charitable people in the world because we believe we have to take care of the downtrodden. They claim it is so easy to feel good about yourself if you are on the left. Oh, I'm for the government investing more in the poor. Oh, that's easy. Let the government take more money from this guy to feed this guy so I don't have to feed this guy. Our view is we feed this guy. Or better, we give the guy a job so he can feed himself. De Tocqueville in the 19th century, de Tocqueville, the great French writer, observer of America, he spoke about America's awesome strength in having non-government, what he called associations. That's what we had here. Because America, remember, America is the only country in the world founded on limited government. That is a moral ideal. That's not political. That's not just economic. That is a moral ideal. As I coined the phrase, the bigger the government, the smaller the citizen. That's what happens. We want you to be important. As the state gets more important, you get less important. I get less important. We're cogs in this giant wheel of the government. That's not a beautiful scenario. We had associations to take care of one another. And, you know, the churches first and foremost. I mean, every church was basically a charitable institution. That's where you take care of people. Look at the Salvation Army to this day as an example. One of my favorite charities, and I raise a lot of money for them. Churches were a perfect example of associations. So was the Rotary Club and the Kiwanis Club and the Lions Club. I remember from my days in the Rotary Club here how much time was taken at every meeting in raising funds for charities for kids in Simi Valley. That was what much of the meeting was about. Okay, who's taking care of the Little League game for the kids who have handicaps? All right, how much money are we raising for that event? How about the picnic for the kids who were blind? That's what they raised out. And that was, by the way, it was all men then. That was considered manly. Don't tell me about patriarchy and toxic masculinity. Masculinity in the Rotary Club was in part defined by who helped the most crippled kids. That was masculine. That was a macho thing to do, to raise funds for the kids who couldn't walk, but you wanted to get them to have an enjoyable Sunday somewhere. That was macho. Talk to me about toxic masculinity. Anyway, who saved this country? Non-masculine men? Think about how stupid that is to attack masculinity. Who fought the Nazis and the communists? Metrosexuals? Socialism kills all of that. All these associations. Do you notice that? How much weaker they are now? They're not nearly as strong. The churches are not nearly as strong, obviously. The synagogues are not nearly as strong. The clubs are not nearly as strong. And it's just the volunteer associations that made up America, that would defined who we were because we didn't rely on the government, they get weak. They're very weak in Europe because there's no need for them. The government takes care of everything. I remember at some open forum for American politicians, George W. Bush was there. He was a candidate. And somebody got up, a young woman, I'd say about 30, and she got up and she said, "I just want to know, if you're elected, what will you do for me?" And what struck me as so amazing was she wasn't embarrassed. She looked perfectly healthy. By the way, that's when I realized I'm not sure I would make it far as a politician. No, I'm not kidding, because I am incapable of not saying what I believe. So I'm in the perfectly right, I'm in the perfect profession. I'm a talk show host. I mean, it's just perfect. I'm paid to say what I think. But I remember thinking I know exactly what I would have said to that young woman. "Ma'am, hopefully nothing." It would have been a truly, truly educational moment for young Americans. And I would have said, "Ma'am, it was a Democrat, a liberal Democrat, who in his inauguration address in 1961, before you were born, said, 'Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.'" I'm telling you, the New York Times would label somebody who said that today a fascist. What? What you can do for your country? Whew, that's fascist. That's what Hitler said. What can Germans do for their country? Now, they may have remembered Kennedy said it, so they couldn't declare it that, because he was a liberal Democrat. By the way, there's a very important point I make every day, the distinction between left and liberal. Which I did earlier, leftists were for integration. Leftists are against integration, they are race-based, and liberalism is pro-racial integration. Liberals don't understand, and if they did, the country's problems would largely be over. If liberals understood their enemy is not the right, it is the left, this country would be saved. That is the most important thing we can do, is to convince liberals they have the wrong enemy. We may differ, but we're not your enemy. We protect what liberalism most stands for, like free speech, like tolerance, like racial integration. The left hates all of that. Alan Dershowitz, lifelong liberal, said to me, lifelong Democrat, professor of law at Harvard, said to me in his apartment in New York, you will see it in the film that Adam Carolla and I are putting out this year, later this year, called No Safe Spaces, about what is happening on our universities. And he said to me, Dennis, I want you to know, as an American, as a Democrat, as a liberal, and as a Jew, I far more fear the left than the right. Alan Dershowitz, lifelong Democrat. Because he's a liberal, he understands the threat to liberalism doesn't come from the right. It comes from the left. All the threats, the serious threats. Oh, I said, well, and he said, Nazis, give me a break. How many Nazis are there in the country? This is a farce. And he's speaking as a Jew. He says, I'm not worried about Nazis. I'm worried about leftists. And he's right. This Jew is too. Much more. Left has always been anti-Semitic. Since Marx to this day, liberals were the most pro-Israel group in America. Now conservatives are, but liberals always were, from Harry Truman on. And the left was always anti-Israel and anti-Jewish. Karl Marx wrote the most anti-Semitic tract of the 19th century. But this is all hidden because you don't learn truths in college. Or now high school, or even increasingly elementary school. What you learn now in elementary school is you are not a boy or a girl till you decide to be one later in life. I know you're laughing, but I know it's a bitter laugh. This is the most frightening of all the developments to me. It's child abuse, what the left is doing to children. It is child abuse. They're told teachers not to call first graders boys and girls anymore, but to call them students, because you can't divide them between the two sexes, because gender is not binary. That's their phrase. So socialism is the state will take care of you, you don't take care of you. The state will take care of all those whom you love, and that's it. That's moral argument number one against socialism. The American value system is we take care of. Let me give you one more example of this. Many of you who are religious will resonate to this. I am religious, in my case Jewish, in your case, most of your cases Catholic, and we have so much in common. Obviously, that's why we speak about Judeo-Christian values, because we have so much in common. And one of the things that we have in common is this. I know this because I know what Christian education and look, let me put it this way, authentic Christian education and authentic Catholic schools and authentic Jewish religious schools, like I went to all day yeshiva till I was 18. Half the day in Hebrew, religious subjects, half the day in English, secular subjects. And the biggest difference between a religious education and a secular education is this. We are raised obligations oriented. Religious people are raised obligations oriented. Secular people are raised rights oriented. That is a huge difference. As I know biblical Hebrew, certainly early biblical Hebrew, pre-prophetic, there's really two types of Hebrew. The vocabulary of the prophets is quite complex, but I know pre-prophetic biblical Hebrew like English. And there is no word for rights. It doesn't appear. But there's the constant concept of obligation. The most common Jewish word comes from Hebrew, from the Bible, mitzvah. Mitzvah means commandment. That's all I knew as a yeshiva boy. What is a mitzvah? What is my commandment to do? What am I commanded to do? I open up my Bible commentary. Yes, I hope you'll get it. Nobody writes Bible commentaries to get rich, so I have no problem asking you to get it. By the way, there were 36,000 copies at Costco. That's a big deal. I am proud of the fact that they bought 36,000 copies of a Bible commentary, because if the Bible doesn't resume its place as the central text in America, we lose America. That is my belief. That is why I'm working so hard. It's called The Rational Bible, and the second volume just came out. The first volume was Exodus, the second is Genesis, and I'm working through the first 5 books of the Bible. And I write in the preface the following. I begin by noting, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I had issues with my parents. Shocking, as I'm sure none of you could relate to that, but so just trust me that it happened. However, from the day I left my parents' house when I was 21 until they died at the ages of 89 and 96, I called them every single week of my life. Didn't matter where I was on earth or in America, I called them to wish them a Shabbat Shalom, to wish them a Sabbath peace. And why did I do it in the beginning? For only one reason. I believed God commanded me, to honor my father and mother. That is the reason I did it. I had a caller just today, wasn't there? I think it was a caller today on the radio, either today or yesterday, about the parent who's a 15-year-old kid is now talks back to the parents. Kid has grew up in a religious Catholic or Christian Protestant home, and is now is pretty insolent to the parents and claims to be an atheist, which is very common. 15-year-olds saying they're an atheist is a dime a dozen. I get it. But what was interesting was he argued, I don't owe you. The parent said, excuse me, you're commanded to honor your father and mother. It's in the 10 Commandments. He said, I'm an atheist. That doesn't mean a damn thing to me. Right? Isn't that perfect? That's a perfect example. I'm sure he knows all his rights, but he has no idea of obligations. Judeo-Christian world produces better people in our society as a general rule. There are bad Jews and bad Christians. I fully acknowledge that. Some religious people have done terrible things, as we only all too well know. But by and large, in America, I'll put my bets on the Judeo-Christian civilization over the non. Number 2, moral argument number 2. Socialism gives you benefits, right? Free lunch, free breakfast, free health care, free college, everything's free. So what has happened? What happens when people get things for free? For one thing, everyone knows this, even I think most liberals, leftists would not acknowledge it because they're leftists, but the more you get without working for it, the less gratitude you will have for what you get. That is definitional. I wrote a book on happiness. It is selling well. It came out in 1999. It is still, if not a national bestseller, a very good seller. And as many of you know, I have an hour on happiness every week since 1999 on Fridays. I've lectured on happiness around the world. This is a very serious subject to me. And this is the one thing you cannot be happy if you do not have, and that is gratitude. There is not a single ungrateful happy person on earth. All happy people are grateful. No ungrateful people are happy, not one. It is not possible to be happy. By the way, it's not possible to be kind. Gratitude is the mother of goodness and happiness. That's how important gratitude is. And what the left has done, it has inculcated ingratitude. That's how sick it is. My answer to this lie of white privilege, my answer is, I'll tell you 2 privileges that trump, no pun intended, that trump white privilege by an immeasurable distance. A father and a mother in your life, that is a major privilege, an American privilege. That is a great privilege. You have American privilege, you're lucky. When I go to college campuses, I tell them, if you are a black in America, you're the luckiest black in the world. If you are a Hispanic in America, you're the luckiest Hispanic in the world. If you're a Muslim in America, you're the luckiest Muslim in the world. And if you're a Jew in America, putting Israel aside, which obviously is its own unique thing to have a Jewish state after 2,000 years, you are the luckiest Jew in the world. My father raised me that. My father was fascinating. My father's American born. My father did an Orthodox Jew. My father did his senior class thesis at the City University of New York, City College of New York. He did it on anti-Semitism in America. His senior class thesis about quotas against Jews at Harvard and other colleges, about law firms that wouldn't accept Jews, about country clubs that wouldn't accept Jews, and yet raised my brother and me to believe we were the luckiest Jews in Jewish history to be American. And he was right. And he was right. That's exactly how I have always regarded it. That's a privilege. So who is going to do, since gratitude is the mother of happiness and goodness, who is going to be more good as a human being and more happy as a human being? The grateful Jew, the grateful black, the grateful white, the grateful woman, or the woman who thinks she's oppressed in America? The black who thinks he's oppressed in America. Who's going to be more happy? Who's going to be more kind? It's a given because of the equation. Gratitude equals goodness and happiness. And the left produces ingrates. And socialism produces ingrates. Because you expect so much, and whatever you get for free. I learned this, it was fascinating. I'll tell you when I learned it. I wrote my first book at the age of 25. And I was very idealistic. I still am, but I was also naive. So I got to speak to, my first book was on Judaism, and I was speaking to a group of young Jews at a summer camp. And I actually gave the counselors, it was at a camp, I gave all the counselors a free copy of my book, which I paid for. You don't get free copies. Anyway, I published it, so I certainly paid for it. And I remember by the fourth person thinking, they're not going to read this. Of course they're not. It means nothing to them because they got it for free. Had I charged $1, they might have read it. They got it for free. It meant nothing. I wasted their time and I wasted my money giving them free copies of my books. What you get for free, you don't value. Worse. So not only does it build in gratitude, it does something else. It makes you an addict. I never engage in hyperbole. I took a vow when I started radio 35 years ago. Not only would I never lie, that's a given because it's such an evil to lie, but I will never even exaggerate if I can help it. So what I'm about to say is not an exaggeration for dramatic effect. I believe it is harder to get off addiction to benefits than it is to get off addiction to heroin. That is how hard it is. When you are used to getting, that's why people riot. People riot when their benefits end. Look at France. You may have to work a few more hours to get these benefits. There are riots. Sometimes people die. Cars are burned. You are taking a benefit away from me? Drop dead. That's what we produce. That's what socialism produces. Ingrates, number one, and addicts, number two. That's how bad it is. And it never stops. Never stops. So I get free health care. I want free college. That won't stop. I also want free graduate school. Hey, and now that shouldn't stop either. I want a guaranteed income. I want to get paid to breathe. That will be the new American motto. I breathe, therefore I receive. Yep. That's what is produced by this sick idea of socialism. 48% of Americans and American young people think it's a good idea, it shows you another thing, the utter and total ignorance they have of the history of socialism. How every country it is screwed up, and then they go, oh, well, look at Denmark, or Sweden, and so on. So watch a PragerU video. By the way, don't make me feel good, I'm just curious. Just clap if you've seen, or your kid has seen a PragerU video. Nice. All right, wait a minute. Just to be honest, clap if you've never seen one. Why are you smiling, man? All right, so that's a lot more than didn't. Anyway, 1 billion views last year, and 1 billion views will be this year. Most of the views, 65%, are under the age of 35. So it's having an impact. Watch the video. A Danish scholar. It just was recent. Did it come out, Sue, or is it going to come out? It came out. Yeah. Thank you. That was great. That was a test. One person passed. Anyway, we just put out a video from a Dane about how nonsense it is that Denmark is socialist. For example, they have a lower tax rate on companies than we do. They don't have a minimum wage even. Socialist Denmark doesn't have a minimum wage. We do. California is way more socialist than Denmark. There's no comparison, as you probably know. So anyway, that's not so. Socialism is what you're seeing in Venezuela. That is what you see, and wherever else there is. Anyway, and that brings me to point number 3. So it is clear that this is not, this produces addicts and ingrates. Oh, there is one more point about this that needs to be made. And I didn't realize this until I finished my commentary on the book of Exodus, even though I've been teaching it my whole life. I put 2 and 2 together. People do not yearn to be free. Freedom, liberty, is a value, not a yearning. People yearn to be taken care of. Leftism, socialism, communism, they far more comport with human nature than Americanism. Why is the American value system unique to America? I'm not saying it's the only good country, but our value system is unique to us. Liberty, in God we trust, e pluribus unum. Why? Why is limited government? It is unique to us because it's a value, not an instinct. People don't yearn to be free, they yearn to be taken care of. The Judeo-Christian value system works against your nature. Every Christian in this room knows, as this Jew knows, we are not born basically good. That life is a battle with our nature. Our nature does not yearn to do the good thing a lot of the time. Just the way it is. It can yearn to do the good thing if it's trained properly, but it's a very hard training. That's why you say to your kid over 10,000 times, say thank you, say thank you, say thank you. If we were basically good, you'd only have to tell them once. Oh, I get it. If somebody is nice to me, I will say thank you. You don't have to tell me anymore, Mom. But it doesn't register for the first 9,000 times. It is not our nature to yearn to be free. And you know how I learned it? From my favorite book, the Bible. That's why the non-Bible world is so unwise. There is no wisdom in the non-Bible world, none. It's amazing. There are nice people who don't have the Bible, but there are no wise people. That's where we got our wisdom from in Western civilization. So the Israelites are taken out of Egypt. God takes them out. 10 plagues against Pharaoh's Egypt. 10 miracles. Then the miracle of the splitting of the sea and the drowning of Pharaoh's army. Then the miracle of being guided at night by a pillar of fire and being guided by the day by a cloud. And the miracle at the mountain at Mount Sinai. And what do the Israelites do? Complain. Right? We ate better in Egypt. That's what they say. Let's go back. Better to be a slave who is well fed. And by the way, they weren't starving. They had totally enough food. But manna is not as interesting as meat. So they preferred interesting food with slavery to freedom and boring manna. Isn't that amazing? No, it isn't. That's human nature. It's like the left tells us, well, yeah, it's okay, so there's not much freedom in Cuba, but there's free health care. There's free health care for slaves. Slaves in the South had free health care. Nobody wanted to lose their slave. It was a loss of an investment. A slave was to a slave owner in the South what a Cuban is to the Communist Party in Cuba, a slave. They want to keep them alive because they need them. But it's an amazing thing to hear people say that. Oh, liberty schmibberty, free health care, that's what matters. That's what liberty is not a left-wing value, it never has been. Never. It's a liberal value, it's a conservative value, it is not a left-wing value. That's why they don't care about free speech. So just remember that liberty is a value. No wonder half the kids, or either half the kids or half the country is okay with socialism, because liberty doesn't matter to them. Being taken care of matters to them. Next. Related to this, socialism is based on the mantra of equality. Equality, equality. So I'm just in the midst of my third volume of my 5-volume commentary. It will be the fourth book. I'm not doing it in order, obviously. The fourth book, which has the unbelievably sexy name, Numbers. Let me tell you something, folks. If Costco orders 36,000 copies of Numbers, one of two things. Either they think it's a math book, or I really sold out the first edition really well. You can't get a more boring name than Numbers. By the way, people say to me, what do the numbers refer to? I tell them, the numbers of complaints the Jews had in the book. Maybe, you know what? Maybe I'll just retitle it Numbers of Complaints. What the hell? Nobody will give it that. Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to pick that up. I got a number of complaints myself. Hey, we're all Jews. That's what they do. They complain. So so the issue is equality. So I'm writing right now. There's a rebellion, a lot of rebellions against Moses. So the biggest one was by a guy named Korach, K-O-R-A-C-H, in Hebrew Korach. And his line, he's the original leftist. This is his line to Moses. Hey, Moses, who are you to put yourself above us? We are all holy. Isn't that awesome? The guy is speaking like a true guy of the left. We're all holy. And as I write in there, that's why we give kids awards for doing nothing in sports. We're all great. We're all champions. The guy said it 3,000 years ago in the book of Numbers. We're all great. Who are you, Moses? Why should you be valedictorian? That's why they're abolishing valedictorians. We're all equal. The kid who can't read and the kid who busted in his chops to become a valedictorian. We're all equal. We're all equal. Nothing is new. I am now convinced I feel bad for God. I'm not joking. I truly do. God looks down on the human race, and you know what he experiences every day? Groundhog Day. I am totally convinced of it. I feel bad for him. There's nothing new. Like it says in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun. That's exactly right. Korach says this 3,000, who are you to put yourself ahead of us? Right? We're all equal. We're all holy. That's the refrain of the left. No culture is better than any other. Yeah, but wait a minute. This culture gave women rights. This culture abolished slavery. This culture raised people from poverty. So what? That's white supremacy if you talk about Western civilization. That's what they say now. No culture better than any other. When the president said that Western civilization was worth protecting and preserving in Warsaw 2 years ago, the New York Times said, oh, it's a dog whistle to white supremacists. And he said, you know, the symphony is one of the great glories of Western culture. I know something about symphonies. I conduct periodically. And he's right. Symphony is an unbelievable creation. So the New York Times classical music critic writes, what's the president talking about? Has he never heard Indonesian gamelan music? And I'm thinking, is this guy for real? No offense at all to Indonesian gamelan music, but he said, you know, that's just as good as Beethoven's Third. I thought, really? Beethoven's Third is no better than Indonesian gamelan music? So those of you who were regular listeners to my show know periodically I play Indonesian gamelan music. So you will get a chance to compare Beethoven's Third and Indonesian gamelan music. Now, I want you to understand something. I promise you I'm not laughing at Indonesian gamelan music. Anybody who said Jewish music was as good as Beethoven's Third is deaf. Okay? So the issue has nothing to do with your group. The greatest music ever written was written in the West. Ask the Japanese. The Japanese are the greatest interpreters of Bach right now. The Japanese are crazy about Beethoven. The greatest musicians in the world are disproportionately Korean, Chinese, and Japanese. That's Western classical music. They're not playing local music. They're playing Western classical music because it is the greatest music ever written. Has nothing to do with color. These people are not white. But all equal, everything is equal. Okay, I was afraid it was a cross. I got really scared. Jew shows up and swaps Jesus. Whoa, I don't want that. It's a bottle of water. I don't care. On the other hand, he was Jewish too, so it's a very complex issue. It's like my favorite line. A woman got up there, speaking to 1,000 people in Agura Hills years ago. There was 500 Jews, 500 Christians, just happened to work out that way, so people lined up afterwards. A woman gets up, Dennis, I want you to know I'm a Christian, and you are my favorite Jew. And I said, no, second favorite. The funny thing that evening was the Jews are all looking at each other. What's so funny about that line? What is so funny about that line? I'm kidding. Most of them got it. Equality. So let me tell you something. Equality and liberty cannot exist together. They just can't. If you say, here's an example. Everybody should earn the same income. Okay? That's equality, correct? That's what communism says, to each according to his needs, from each according to his ability. If everybody, that means a shortstop will get paid the same as a teacher. Sounds beautiful, doesn't it? But then there's no freedom. Because we want to feel free to pay a shortstop what we want. That's what freedom allows. Is that fair? It's a stupid word. Is it fair that shortstops get more than surgeons? Is it fair? What does that mean? It means nothing. It's free. In a free world, you live with that. That is the way it works. People can spend their money as they wish. If they wish to spend it on baseball games, that's what they will spend it on. That's what freedom, the moment there is freedom, there is inequality. The moment you begin to abolish inequality, you have abolished freedom. But since they don't value freedom, this doesn't matter. It should matter to us. I don't want a totalitarian state. And finally, two final points. So much of this socialist talk is rooted in pure envy. You know, this notion of resenting people who earn more than you, I actually had to learn about it. I grew up, as I always say, I know what class I grew up in because I knew what model GM my father drove. Those of you old enough will recall, you knew people's socioeconomic status: Cadillac, Buick, Oldsmobile, Pontiac, Chevrolet. That is the way it worked. Right? That was it. So what did we own? Oldsmobile. And one of my father's friends owned a Buick, and I thought, whoa, he is doing well. I remember that as a kid. And the next door neighbor owned a Cadillac. So I thought, this is the richest human being in the world, but I give you my word, as we are in a house of prayer, I give you my word. I do not recall a hint of resentment at the wealth that the neighbor had who had a Cadillac. It never occurred to my parents or to me or to my brother. The reason that the guy could afford a Cadillac was that he earned more money than my father. I didn't think less of my father. I didn't think more of the man. I just knew that's a fact of life. Some people can buy Cadillacs. What the hell do I care? What difference does it make? Why am I going to resent the fact that he has a better car? I had to go to college to learn to resent it. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. So they're billionaires? So what if they're billionaires? You know how good you and I have it in the middle class? Do you understand that? You know how lucky we are? I don't have what a billionaire has? So what? So what? That is the reason for the 10th commandment. 10th commandment is the only one of the 10 commandments that prohibits a thought. Every other one prohibits actions. And it's the only thought prohibited in the Torah, in the first 5 books where all the laws are. It's the only thought that's prohibited. And that is coveting what belongs to your neighbor. The left lives on the violation of the 10th commandment. That is their essence. I don't care if you have 10 houses. In all honesty, I don't even understand the appeal of 10 houses. We're remodeling our one house, and it presents marital challenge. 10 houses, they must all divorce. It's amazing. Anyway, that's a very important little point about it's such unhealthy. Socialism comes from such an unhealthy part of the human being. And finally, economics. Socialism only has the money to spend to give you free health and free tuition and free everything else because capitalism made the money. All wealth. All, not most, all wealth on earth has been created by capitalism. The only reason mankind is not in abject poverty, billions of people are out of abject poverty, is capitalism. So here is a very simple rule. If you love ideas, you will love socialism. If you love people, you will love capitalism. They don't love people. That's the point. They don't love people. They love ideas. That's why they're so mean. They are. They're just meaner. Not liberals and conservatives. There are mean and nice liberals. There are mean and nice conservatives. But the leftists are all mean. They will destroy you if they can, if they differ with you. And this is a big part of the reason. They don't really care about people. Not just that they don't care about liberty, they don't care about people. They think they care about people. They delude themselves. Every bad movement deludes itself into, we're for the people, we're for the people, we're for the people. They're for power, not people. If you're for the people, you're for capitalism. That's the way it works. You see, poverty is the human norm. Wealth needs to be explained. Why are there poor people is a stupid question. Why are there wealthy or non-poor people is the only intelligent question. That's what they don't ask, because they don't even understand that. The aberration in history is wealth, not poverty. That's the human norm. Capitalism, and only capitalism, is what lifted billions of people from poverty. But they're so naive in America because we've had it so good. We've just had it so good. They don't understand where the good came from. They don't understand slavery was 100% universal. Every society on earth had slaves. So the intelligent question is not why did any of the founders have slaves? It's who abolished slavery, like who abolished poverty. Those are the only intelligent questions. Everyone had slaves. Blacks had slaves, Arabs had slaves, American Indians had slaves. Everyone had slaves. Who abolished it? A Christian named Wilberforce abolished it. That's who abolished it. So, that's the story. It's a fight for the soul of the last best hope on earth, what we are engaged in right now. I call it a civil war. I pray it stays nonviolent, but it is a civil war. And we're not winning. That's clear. If half of American youth, or half of Americans totally, I don't know which it is, actually think socialism is good, we're losing. That doesn't mean it's lost. It means it's a wake-up call. So I'll just tell you what I resolved at Normandy many, many years ago, when I saw thousands and thousands of graves of kids 20 and 21 and 22 slaughtered by the Nazis at Normandy Beach. And this is the vow I took. I said, these guys, they died for America and liberty. Nobody's asking me to die for America and liberty, but the least I could do is live for them. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Is there time for any questions?
I would love to take, that's my favorite part. I hear me a lot.
So my question is, we talk and talk and talk about all these problems, but nobody has a solution to how to solve these problems. We have the left that has, fake accounts that they go in and they harass people with, that Republicans do nothing. And we need to start fighting.
Right. Well, actually, the good news, it's obvious I don't see the world through rose-colored glasses. We are fighting. Not all of us, not all Republicans. Mitt Romney doesn't fight. John McCain didn't fight. He fought the communists in Vietnam, and he was a hero of the first rank there. So Bob Dole didn't fight. I'm talking about the candidates for president. George W. Bush didn't fight much. The Republicans were not a fighting party. That is correct. As I said when I joined the Republicans, when Ronald Reagan was president, I was Democrat till then. And as I said, I've gone from the destructive party to the stupid party. So, but right now that's not true. When and you need to know that there are a lot of wonderful Republicans now. And when Lindsey Graham said what he said at the Kavanaugh hearing, I want you to know I think that was a true sea change moment. He realized, Lindsey Graham, who's a gentleman, and he is not Trumpian in his rhetoric and so on. Lindsey Graham awakened to the fact that the Democrats were cruel. And that is very important to understand. They are cruel. They humiliate people with the ease with which you breathe. And this was an example of what they reduced this unbelievably decent man to. So I think that there are a fair number of people who are awakening. Look, that's why, obviously, I'm only one person, but I did start something big, aside from my writings and the radio show. The PragerU is big. And I feel it's like a race between what we're doing, and by we, it's not just myself, you know, Ben Shapiro and Turning Point USA and Candace Owens. I mean, they're and it's a lot. By the way, it's just interesting. 3 of those 4 names live in Southern California. Oh no, it's not true. Candace doesn't live here. She should. Yeah, that's true. Candace is now with PragerU, so I thought that, but two of the 4, Ben Shapiro and I are here, Daily Wire and PragerU, Pajama Media here. It's an amazing thing. Not Northern California, that's really lost, but there's a lot of good stuff that is happening. What you have to do, and this is a really important thing to remember. I came to a realization, not everybody is a fighter. I am. That's my nature. I'm a fighter. So it's hard to become a fighter if you're not a fighter. No matter how hard I try, I'm not going to be a first baseman. I recognize that. But everybody can help fighters. There are 3 types of decent people. Those who fight, those who help the fighters, and those who do nothing. They're still nice. And their heart is in the right place, their values are in the right place, but they don't do anything. People who help the fighters are as important as the fighters. The troops can't fight without supplies. So if you can help people like us at PragerU, and I didn't come here to make an appeal for PragerU, and the money doesn't go to me anyway, obviously, but if you can help any of us who are doing this, anyone, a lot of good groups, not just us, that's a very big deal. And if you could, you know, every so often write a letter, like if you have a Spotify account, maybe go to a different server. Spotify dropped PragerU because they said that, you know, they're not going to carry any of our, what is it? They won't carry our broadcasts? Or our advertising. They won't carry our advertising. We're a hate group. I mean, a hate group. We have 4 former prime ministers, 4 Pulitzer Prize winners, Democrats, Republicans, but clergy. We're a hate group. Isn't that disgusting? I mean, a hate group. We have videos on how to forgive your parents if they hurt you. That's some hate group, isn't it?
Dennis, you know, we've been following you for years back in the 90s, and we've seen this conversion with you, and you say that we stand together. And even I would often say, as a Catholic Christian, but to other Christians, that we're in this fight together. And in your conversion, with being Jewish, we could see where the melding of minds were coming together. And it was a matter of approach with the vernacular, because we're in the belly of the beast right here. We pump this out to the rest of the world. And we just came back, we're homeschoolers. We didn't have a choice to keep our kids in a public school system now, because we knew the voice of reason. We could hear the prophetic voice in what you were teaching, even being Jewish, because of the Old Testament or the Torah. So we were together in this fight. I commend you when you do fight that, because you are that voice in Hollywood and to the world. And I say this to our fellow Catholic Christians. We have to talk to our brothers and sisters, even if the approach is awkward. We have to do it with grace, because like Dennis said, when we start to talk to them, we break down those walls. And even the liberalism that's within our own walls, it's because they just don't know. So Dennis, in that vernacular, right, that prophetic voice, he speaks the truth. We come together, but we are in this fight together because America does die, and the whole what we stand for.
Bless you. Yeah. By the way, just one tiny correction. I didn't have, so to speak, a conversion experience. I was a Democrat, but I was always anti-left, always. And in fact, the reason I was communism. And I told you, my favorite verse is to hate evil. If you didn't know that communism was evil and you couldn't say that, there's something wrong with your conscience. And the left couldn't say communism was evil. When I studied at graduate school at School of International Affairs at Columbia, my professors depicted America and the Soviet Union as moral equivalents. Yes. So I knew from a very early age that there was something, a real moral crisis on the left. Yes.
I don't think the majority of the people understand this. This is even within our...
Oh, totally. What, are you kidding? Look, I mean, I did a whole thing. Grand Canyon University banned Ben Shapiro from speaking. Grand Canyon University is the largest Christian university in the United States.
I'm going to go even further than that. The Newman Society, we have like 287 Catholic universities and colleges in the United States. Do you know how many stand true to the church?
11.
No, well, it's 27 last year.
All right, all right. Yeah, I was close. I was close. Right.
Right? So the pride that sometimes these Catholic parents have no idea.
Right.
We are forming our kids in our faith.
That's right.
And 93% of our...
That's why I said I don't care what religion you're a member of as long as you're embarrassed by it. I have the same issue. That's right. Here is my line. The most dynamic religion of the last 100 years has not been Christianity. It has not even been Islam. It has been leftism. That has influenced the world far more than Judaism and Christianity have influenced the world. And here's the killer. Leftism has influenced Judaism and Christianity a tremendous amount. That's what's depressing.
I have more of a comment and then a question at the end. I just want to bring up something that I think isn't brought up enough amongst good conservative people. You know, sometimes I'm on the internet and I see a lot of folks asking things like, you know, what's going on with our culture? You know, where did all these leftists come from with all these weird ideas? And I think that one of the keys to changing things for the better is knowing exactly where it comes from. And in my estimation, it's school, mostly. You know, these leftist elements have been taking over our schools for decades and pushing all this leftist propaganda and the ideology more and more with each passing decade. And I feel like good conservative people have been sending their kids to these schools, none the wiser, and their kids are coming back with blue and pink hair and telling them that they're racist and all of that kind of thing, you know. So I think that it should be something that's talked about more, especially amongst people who have a platform,
Right.
Mr. Prager, like you do.
Right.
So
Well, okay, just a quick word on education then. I don't know what I would do if I had young kids today, because the indoctrination begins in kindergarten. So I tend to think that unless I found a religious school I trusted, which is not common, I would probably homeschool my kids today. I don't know what to say. There's I reported last week, there's a Minnesota school district that announced that the principal, after the pledge, the principal had always said, "God bless America," and is now forbidden to say it. Can't say "God bless America." I mean, that's really something.
Dennis, we have a saying, we don't isolate our children, we insulate them from the things that they don't need to know in the world, to let them grow and grow roots.
That's right, let them grow. I'm with you. Thank you. Yes, okay. Next, please.
Thank you, Dennis.
Right.
Over the millennium, obviously, I think meetings like this have been taking place over the past thousands of years within governments and arenas that people have been disenchanted with their government. We've seen great republics come and go. The Greeks, the Romans, and they've all fallen in many ways, but the way I see this now, our republic and how it's going, it seems to be in the same kind of context that some of the greatest republics have gone. It's over expansion, creating more of a leftist type environment within those historical foundations. So I'm losing my sense of, I guess, hope relative to where this country is really going. We need a lot of fighters, there's no doubt about it. I'm going to be a fighter until I take my last breath. But I don't know how soon that breath may come.
Right.
That's my problem. And I continue to look at what I've never seen a republic has declined over the millennium, and it's come back from that declination.
You're right. That's my worry. It's particularly bizarre that Jews don't understand the fragility of civilization, since Auschwitz was built by the same society that gave us Beethoven and Schiller and so on, and Mozart. Civilization is only secure for at a generation at a time. If the next generation doesn't reaffirm its values, they're lost. That's right, I agree with you. Listen, I will tell you, listeners to my show, no, I don't hide, I don't patronize my listeners. If I'm not optimistic, I don't feign optimism, which is not good for a show, and people don't want to tune into a pessimist. I'm well aware of that. It's a terrible battle I have, but I'd rather be honest and lose my job than fake cheerfulness that I don't have. On election day of 2016, I really thought that this was the decision that would decide whether America has hope. And I didn't think it did have hope. I bought the polls, and I assumed what they were. I'm not endorsing anybody, although obviously it'll be obvious from it's so funny when I'm about to tell you, I'll say it anyway. I have two sons, and I have told them the following. Boys, you can imagine how happy I was the night you were born. But I was happier the night Trump won. I was happier the night Trump won. That's what I told them. And the reason is not Trump. The reason was anybody on the left. I don't care if it's Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden. I don't care. The direction of the country was frightening. I mean, to have more suppression of free speech, to have more kids raised not to believe they're a boy or a girl. There are a handful of human beings who have the tragedy of gender dysphoria. These people get a hug from me and my courtesy and respect. But the notion that there isn't male and female, the fact that there are a tiny, tiny handful of people who do not believe that they are the sex they were born, doesn't deny that they are the sex that they were born. It just denies that they feel that. Okay, I will respect that. You look like a woman, you dress like a woman, you take a woman's name, I'll call you a woman. I won't let you race against women, though, because you still have a male body, which is what they do in Connecticut. The high schools, the girls' races include transgender girls. That's males, and they all win. And they set records against the girls, so none of the girls win the races. That's why I said I never believed feminism cared for women. I never believed it for a second, and I know it for a fact. This is the proof. Not one feminist organization defended the girls of Connecticut against the cheating that was done against them. Yes?
Afternoon. I'll keep it.
What time zone are you in?
As far as I'm concerned, it happened earlier, so it's
I got you, I'm kidding, it's okay.
how do you share information with people who won't listen effectively?
There's no way. No, this is that's why when people come over to me, as did tonight at the reception, people said, I just want you to know you changed my life. And I have a standard answer because it's completely sincere. You get 50% of the credit because that means you were open to hearing other ideas. 50% of the people are not. But I will tell you this, if you have kids in the house, I would pay them to watch Prager videos. Seriously, I don't know how you raise kids without bribery anyway. So, which may show a defective parent that I am, but nevertheless, absolutely I'd pay them. For every one you watch, I'll give you X amount of dollars, and if you write a 2-page report on it, on what was said and your reactions, and then we discuss it, I'll double the price, or I don't know what you do. I don't care. It's worth it in spades. And it is effective for them to see that there are moral, intellectual arguments that are the antithesis of what they're getting in school. This is very valuable. Yep.
Do you believe that Trump has committed an impeachable offense by obstructing justice?
No, I don't, but I knew you'd expect that answer. But he obstructed justice as much as he colluded with Russia. This country bathes in media lies, bathes in them. And that's a very, very bad thing that has happened. And there are some courageous people in journalism that have blown the whistle on how bad it is. But 2 years of people saying, you know, he colluded with Russia, and he didn't. He was right the whole time. It was a witch hunt. It's exactly what it was. And yet, so it's found to have been a witch hunt, and so then they go now to the next one, obstruction of justice. But there will always be something. It's like Bush lied, people died. This is not new. Smearing a Republican president Bush didn't lie. Bush did not lie. If he did, then the Prime Minister of England also lied, because they were told by virtually every Western intelligence agency that Saddam Hussein did have nuclear weapons. Did have weapons of mass destruction. He didn't lie. It's a lie that he lied. But they say it. We live in lies. America, a racist country? It's the least racist, multi-ethnic country in the history of the world. You got me going. It's not hard. Thank you. Okay, we'll take these two more that are up there. There are three more. Okay, these three, and I've always believed since I began lecturing, the lecturer should leave before the audience does. So stay with me for three more questions. Okay, yes, or comments. I'll take comments too. Yeah.
Mr. Prager, when I started listening to you about 25 years ago, biggest forces on the left were academia and the media, and you expressed your pessimism just a few moments ago when you said we're losing the battle. I can totally understand, because it's gotten to the point now where it's affected the workplace, big corporations. There's a lot of political correctness going on to the point where I'm afraid, to quote you or Dr. Jordan Peterson, my two favorite philosophers, for fear of reprisal. And quoting NPR, any left-wing group is very cautious in trend right now.
That's right. Isn't that amazing?
Right. And that's
I know. There's no quid pro quo. We never did to them what they do to us. Never. Did anybody not go to a parent's Christmas or Thanksgiving dinner because they voted for Obama? Or for Clinton? I hope you would consider any conservative who didn't go to their parent who voted for a Democrat for Christmas or Thanksgiving to be a loser. And I'll declare, you're a loser. There's something wrong with you if you don't go to your parents for Christmas or Thanksgiving because they voted Democrat. There's something wrong with you. You are not a conservative. You betray everything we stand for if that's the way you act. We believe in standards. Okay? Standards over feelings. But it doesn't work the other way around. The number of kids who won't talk to a parent because they voted for Trump is astonishing. All of a sudden, the parent who raised them and loved them and went into difficult financial straits for them is evil because they voted Republican or voted specifically for Donald Trump. Anyway, it is a credit to it's very interesting. Religious Catholics, religious Protestants, mostly called evangelicals, and Orthodox Jews overwhelmingly support President Trump. Now, isn't that interesting? Now, why would that be? Because you're attacked, all religious Christians especially, Jews are too few to get attacked on this. But Christians who support the president are called hypocrites. Didn't you read your Bible? Do you know what a sinner this guy is? But they didn't read their Bible. The reason religious Christians and Jews can support a man with a sinful past is because they did read their Bible. That's the whole point. If adultery is a disqualifier for leadership, we're really in bad shape, because King David not only committed adultery, he had the husband killed. It was a married woman, and he had the husband killed. And guess who God brought the Israelites? Who saved the Israelites when they went into Canaan? A prostitute. Why didn't God pick an accountant? God could have picked anybody he wanted. Maybe God was sending a message like, hello, hello, before you judge, take it easy, let's see who's doing good. Since when is this, I love this idea, oh, the president's not a role model for kids. So I thought about that. And I'm thinking, when I was a kid, I don't remember my father ever saying, Dennis, I want you to watch how John Kennedy lives. I missed that instruction. Or, Dennis, watch Lyndon Johnson. Then you'll know how to live a good life. In my whole life, it never occurred to me, raising children or being a child once, the president was my role model on these matters. You know who my role models were? My father, my uncles, my rabbis, my teachers, my priests, my ministers. Those are the people who are our role models. It's nonsense. The president affects 330 million Americans and 7 billion people. That's a little more important than what he might have said off the record to a guy not knowing he was recorded. And by the way, just for the record, I don't care what you say privately. I don't give a hoot. Harry Truman used the word kike regularly in correspondence. The worst word you could use for a Jew, okay? It's the N-word for a Jew. And he turned out to be the greatest friend the Jews had until the current president. Against the entire State Department, he recognized the state of Israel as a Jewish state within 1 hour of it being announced in May of 1948. Okay, yes.
Dennis, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to speak to you. And
Thank you.
It literally gets me through my workday.
Good.
The other thing
Play it loud.
that's dangerous.
That's true.
I just want to make a couple of comments and ask for your input. I do not think that it is an accident that we've developed this rapport with left politicians. When we intellectually challenge them, the response is, how dare you? You're just against them because they are fill in the blank. Going back to your original point about the groups. This person is the first African American that. This person is
Right.
the first female this. I don't think that's an accident. And the other thing I'd like you to comment on is, how does a country become vulnerable to socialism? You know, every time I read about Venezuela, they talk about it was the richest country in South America, but we don't know what happened. Well, something happened. What is it where the people, the citizens, become so seduced by this?
There's a one-word answer: inequality. People want equality more than they want liberty. And by the way, under communism, you pretty much, except for members of the Communist Party who live better than anyone else, you do get equality. Everybody lives terribly. That's what would happen with the Green New Deal. Everybody would live terribly. That's exactly what would happen, but it doesn't matter to them. But then everyone's equal. So that's the seductive nature. Equality is the seductive word. In America, there's another factor. We have a very bad equation here: secularism and affluence. Secularism plus affluence equals boredom. Boredom equals need for causes. The left always has a new cause. They're always phony causes. But the causes are to the left what oxygen is to biological beings. There's always a cause because it has to fill their bored lives with meaning. You don't need causes, you have a cause. It's your Catholicism. It's my Judaism. I have a cause. I don't need a new cause. I am filled to the brim with meaning in life thanks to my religion and my family and my work. I need no other causes. They do. Nothing fulfills them. The post-Christian world is a disaster. Christianity had a lot of failings, as you know, because Christians failed a lot. It's just a fact of life. But the post-Christian world is far more frightening than anything within the Christian world. The post-Christian world gave us communism and Nazism. These were not Christians. Okay? With the church failed in Germany, and it's part of the reason that Germany is so secular, and so is much of Europe. This was a terrible tragedy. So it's another discussion. I mean, Christians have to recognize it, and I tell Jews all the time, America's Christians are not Europe's Christians. These are the best Christians that the world ever produced, are America's Christians. If I think you're the best people ever produced in the world, how do you like that? But I could say it because I'm a Jew. So it is. This country has produced a staggering number of wonderful human beings. It is just, it amazes me. At the end of my debate with 2 kids at Berkeley, I knew I would get hassled a lot at Berkeley, so I decided I know how I won't get hassled if I don't speak, if I just debate 2 leftists. So you could watch it, it's on YouTube. I debate 2 leftist kids. They were very nice, by the way, and I was very nice, by the way. And anyway, at the end, all I did was I wanted to clarify for the students and those who will watch on YouTube where we differ. That's my modus operandi, clarity over agreement. My last question I asked, do you believe people are basically good? And they said that they did, which is what I expected, because they have no biblical wisdom. They have this idiotic idea that human nature is good. It's an astonishingly stupid idea. And dangerous. And I said to them, do you know, after they finished, I said, I'd like to tell you why you believe it. There's only one reason you believe people are basically good, because you live in America, where so many people are good. Final one. Final. Yes. Ma'am, yes.
Hi, Dennis. It's good to have you here in Simi Valley, back where you started.
Good to be back, yes. It's where I started, correct.
I have a million and one concerns most of the time and every day. I have grandchildren and...
Wait a minute. Either my glasses are failing me, which is possible, or you don't look like a grandmother. Just for the record. Okay, go ahead.
I'm 51. I came from an era where most of the time you would open up your history book in junior high and high school, and we started with Christopher Columbus. We went on to Ponce de Leon, and then we learned about our presidents. Today they start at President Clinton in the history books. I know this because we have children in school today, and they've removed a huge chunk of our history. What I'm concerned about is not a lot of people are talking about that, and they're rewriting history. And then they're allowed to misquote history every day on the news, and nobody says anything.
Right. Well, let me tell you about the history books in California. They passed a law years ago that there have to be a certain number of pages in school history books on women, on gays, now transgender, on blacks, on Hispanics, and so on. So in other words, you realize history books are not history books. They're cheerleading for your group books. Okay? I will tell you, it reminds me of a book I got on my bar mitzvah, Great Jews in Sports. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all very much.